Hey guys, George Domyar Sports Cards coming at you with another video on this MLK Day. Back in 1986, President Reagan signed into law a bill that made the third Monday of each January Martin Luther King Day. And so in honor of that, I'm going to go over some cards of some of the great players of that era, the pre-civil rights movement, which really started in Major League Baseball in a lot of ways. Obviously, it was going on in America, but Major League Baseball had a lot to do with moving the needle forward in a lot of ways, because it was the biggest sport at the time, had 3 teams in New York, and one of those teams would be the first to integrate with Jackie Robinson. And so I'm going to show you some cards. I hope you enjoy it. Cards from pre-Jackie Robinson all the way through the 1950s and into the early 1960s. So here we go. Okay, guys. Here, get my camera right, and then we'll start this off. First card, John Henry Pop Lloyd. Greatest Negro League shortstop of all time, 74 Laughlin. Babe Ruth said, when they asked him, who's the greatest baseball player you've ever seen? He said, Major League player? They said, no, the greatest baseball player you've ever seen. And Babe Ruth said, John Henry Pop Lloyd. Oscar Charleston, commonly known as the greatest Negro League player, all around, center fielder, speed, power, average, unbelievable skills, and a wonderful manager. Baseball Immortals, 74 Laughlin. The greatest catcher in Negro League history, Josh Gibson, 86 Frisch. Thought he was going to be one of the first, if not the first, ball player from the Negro Leagues to play in the major leagues, but that didn't happen. A lot of things derailed his life. Lost a child, heavy drinking. One of the all-time great players. What can be said about Satchel Paige? Satchel himself didn't believe he was the greatest pitcher in the Negro Leagues. He believed there were better pitchers than him. In 1950, they did a poll of the greatest Negro League players at that time. Of all time, people voted who had seen them play. And the starting pitcher, the number 1 starting pitcher, was Smokey Joe Williams. They asked Satch about it. What do you think about being number 2? And Smokey Joe being ahead of you. And he said, that's about right. Now, obviously, the Brooklyn Dodgers, Branch Rickey, started working on this plan in 1945. This is one of the only Branch Rickey cards you can get. There's Cracker Jack. I believe Enough Said cards showed, I'm not sure what year it was, or Branch Rickey recently. This is the most easily accessible of them. And obviously, in April of 1947, we have things changing tremendously. And in Brooklyn, you know, one of the 3 teams in New York made a big impact, but it wasn't just happening in Brooklyn, of course. It was happening in Cleveland, and would happen not that much later in the season in Cleveland, where the great Larry Doby would come up, contribute to a World Series champion. Last time the Indians won the championship. By 1949, you had African-American players in the All-Star game. Things were changing. The great Roy Campanella would win 3 MVPs for the Brooklyn Dodgers. Jackie Robinson would win MVP. A lot of people believe that this man should have won the MVP as well, Monty Irvin. If you haven't read Joe Pazansky's book, Baseball 100, I started reading it. I'm about 150 pages in, but I read the Monty Irvin portion of the book, and it's absolutely fascinating. Then we had, of course, coming up, 1951, the great Willie Mays, who on everybody's list is at least, you know, top 1, 2, 3 of all time, justifiably. In football, we had Marion Motley, 6 yards a carry. I think his rookie is 1950, but he would lead the Browns to many championships. An amazing football player. Great players coming up, like Hank Thompson, who would be in the outfield and make the first all African-American outfield in the World Series. Hank Thompson, Willie Mays, Monty Urban. Luke Easter on Cleveland. Again, a wonderful baseball team in Cleveland. Sam Jethro. Then, in April of 1954, Henry Aaron would come up. Followed by Ernie Banks. Back-to-back MVPs. Minnie Minoso. Finally in the Hall of Fame. This is 61, but obviously he has rookie cards in 52. The great Roberto Clemente would be part of this. Latino players would be part of this. Let's put him over here. Elston Howard. The first Yankee of color, I believe. A most valuable player. Frank Robinson, a Triple Crown winner, multiple times most valuable player. All these ball players would push the needle forward. All these ball players would contribute in one way or another. Most of the MVPs would be won by these players of color. The great Bob Gibson. The Dominican dandy, Juan Marichal. The National League was full of stars. And this was baseball's golden age. The Alou brothers, Billy Williams in Chicago, Ernie Banks, Stretch with the Giants, Lou Brock with the Cardinals, and these great friendly foes, superstar specials as I call them, being born in the 80s. Oh, not being born in the 80s, being growing up in the 80s. Of course, Power Plus here is a fantastic card. Banks and Aaron, and then Thompson NL. Mays and Aaron. And lastly, guys, thank you so much for watching. Canadian Exhibits, Jackie Robinson. Have a great MLK Day. Take care and keep collecting.